In this video, you'll learn how to brighten your image using the color wheels in the color page. We'll keep things simple and practical, so by the end, you'll understand exactly what lift, gamma, and gain do, how they affect different parts of your image, and how to avoid pushing things too far. First, make sure you're on the color page. This is where all your grading tools live, including the color wheels and the scopes. Once you're there, look for the primary color wheels. These are usually labeled lift, gamma, and gain, and they control the shadows, midtones, and highlights of your image. Let's start with lift. Lift affects the darkest parts of the image, the shadows. When you raise lift, you're essentially brightening those shadow areas, bringing out more detail in the dark parts of the frame. Do this slowly and watch your image as you go. If you lift it too much, the blacks can start to look washed out or grey instead of rich and deep. The goal is to reveal detail in the shadows without losing contrast, so make small adjustments and keep an eye on the overall balance. Next is gamma. Gamma targets the mid-tones, which is where most of the visual information in your image usually lives: skin tones, clothing, backgrounds, and general scene detail. When you raise gamma, you brighten these midtones, which can give the image more presence and clarity. As you adjust gamma, pay attention to how faces and important objects look. You want them to feel brighter and more alive, but not so bright that they look flat or overexposed. Again, small, gradual moves are much better than big jumps. Now move on to gain. Gain controls the highlights, the brightest parts of the image: reflections, bright skies, light sources, or any areas catching strong light. Raising gain will make those highlights pop and can add a nice sense of sparkle or contrast to the image. However, this is also where it's easy to push too far. If you raise gain too much, you may lose detail in the brightest areas and they'll turn into solid white patches with no texture. To help you keep everything under control, use the waveform scope. The waveform shows you the brightness levels in your image from dark to light, usually from the bottom of the graph to the top. As you raise lift, gamma, and gain, watch how the trace on the waveform moves. You want to avoid pushing the brightest parts all the way to the top, which can indicate clipping and lost detail, and you want to make sure the darkest parts don't float too high, which can make the image look flat. Ideally, your signal spreads nicely across the range without bunching up too hard at either extreme. As you brighten the image, you might start to notice noise, especially in the shadows or in areas that were originally very dark. This is common when lifting exposure in post. If that happens, apply a light touch of noise reduction. Start with subtle settings rather than aggressive ones. Too much noise reduction can smear details and make the image look plastic or overly smooth. A gentle amount helps clean up the noise while still keeping texture and sharpness. Once you've balanced lift, gamma, and gain, confirmed your levels with the waveform, and added light noise reduction if needed, step back and look at the image as a whole. If it feels naturally brighter with good contrast and clean detail, you've done it